Hey, what's up YouTube? You're with gothatfunk. This is a video response to my friend Rich, aka Premed2, and his recent video called Atheist Advantage. I'm going to link it down below in the description box, and I strongly recommend that you watch that video before you carry on with this one to give this video context. Rich, again, my condolences at the recent loss of your father. I know it was a long time coming, and so in that sense it was some kind of a relief for you when he finally died. I understand and can empathize completely with your thoughts there. And I hope no one gives you any shit about this sense of relief that you've expressed. Grieving and bereavement are different for every single person. There's no such thing as the way a person should grieve. You grieve how you grieve. And you sound a lot like me, Rich, in so far as, when you can see death coming from a distance, due to ill health or other circumstances, you can sort of come to terms with how you feel about it. You come to terms with how you feel about the person, how you feel about your relationship with that person, and then you watch how they deal with the awesome responsibility of confronting their own mortality. You asked the question in your video, wouldn't it be better if we treated people like adults rather than feed them with cocktail of fairy tales that religion offers regarding death and this idea of a hereafter? Now, different religions deal with it in different ways, of course. I don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in reincarnation. I certainly don't believe in any heaven or hell, and I don't have any sort of pseudo New Age spirituality going on where I think that we all come together in some faraway place in peace, harmony, and understanding, or anything like that. No, I think that, when your body dies, you're dead. However, I do feel very strongly, you mentioned your friend Steve in the video. Steve died relatively young and quite unexpectedly. And you mentioned that when Steve died, despite being an atheist, you had the strong feeling that in some sense Steve was sort of still around, as it were. Oh, I've had several people that are close to me in the past die. And like I'm sure quite a few people who have experienced death and bereavement, they can probably empathize with that sort of feeling that they're still around. And I understand the inclination, the temptation to dress it in religious imagery, because that's what religion has provided us with, and sort of say, oh, they're watching over me from beyond or whatever. No, I don't believe that's true for 1 second, but I do personally think that Steve is still around in your life. So is your dad. So is your mom. So is anybody else who's died before you, who's made an impression on you. You see, it's my opinion, whatever that's worth, that our entire life experience is an accumulation of consciousness that we retain with our brain. And the things that we tend to remember in our lives, more often than not, are the really, really intense experiences, either really intense good experiences or really intense bad experiences. I mean, you don't remember every shit you took or every time you walked out your front door. But you would remember it if you walked out your front door and you stepped on a rake which hit you in the face. You'd remember that for years. As an example, the more time you spend with a particular individual, the more you rub off on one another, the more deeply bonded you are with an individual, the more of an impression you make on one another. And when I use the word, I'm not meaning it in the religious sense, but the spirit of a person is something that you can absorb to a fairly large degree, the more bonded you are with that person. Now again, I don't mean spirit in any kind of religious connotation whatsoever. I do not think that the body is the host of a ghost. I don't think that for 1 second. But what I'm talking about is the essence of a person, not just their personality, but their joie de vivre and everything else that makes a person who they are. Whether we mean to or not, all of us who make an impression on other people become part of that other person's life to whatever degree we've made that impression. And so, when Steve died, you and Steve had a number of very close metaphysical experiences in the past. That's just what I'm aware of. I'm sure there's an awful lot more to your relationship, which provides that texture, that impression. And you're still here, Rich. And so I don't give a fuck if this sounds like new agey or whatever, but as long as you're still here and retain those memories, Steve and your mom and your dad still here as well. In the sense that you're still here and you still have an effect on the world, and the effect that other people had on you affect the way you affect the world. In this sense, we all ripple out through one another and into one another's lives. And in this sense, we beat death. You can only beat death by being remembered. And in my opinion, that doesn't mean you're being born again in some sort of hereafter. It just means that you're still alive because you're still a part of the living. It's just not your heart beating anymore. It's not your brain doing the thinking anymore. That part is definitely gone. So yeah, I agree with you. It would be much better if we looked death in the face and lived our lives knowing that one day it's all going to end, and that we better fill our lives with as much quality as possible, because that day can't be avoided. I don't think you need to have, not you personally, Rich, but people. I don't think people need to have this religious iconography and narrative that goes along with death and bereavement. I personally don't think people need it. But I can understand the temptation to grab for it, because death is like the great unknown, and it's natural for animals, human or otherwise, to have some sense of fear over that which they can't understand and can't know anything about. But I don't really fear being dead. I fear the actual process of dying, because I have no doubt I'll be in pain. And pain isn't fun. But generally speaking, I don't fear death itself, because I know that I've made a good impression while I'm here on enough people, and that's good enough for me. Anyway, Rich, I wish you well. I hope you're coping fine, and I have no doubt that we'll speak again. In the meantime, to you in particular, and to everyone else watching as well, may all your ups and downs be ups.